where does privacy sit in all of this? And how do you build? So there's this pilot that you mentioned, Arnon, where the employee's perception was that this was meant to be a low trust tool for the employees,
Yeah.
which in fact could be reversed, right? It could be a positive asset for them. How do you deal? Like, what's the considerations now with the consumers who are going through those areas? I mean, it's kind of ubiquitous everywhere, but how do you walk the line between what's good on privacy or not? And this is it's a big topic, but any initial thoughts, like how do you walk the privacy aspect in all of this?
Yeah, so I think just touching this, and this is, I think, one of those areas that, it's an area that, again, pilots survive privacy easily because I do it in my lab. Who cares? It's fine. But then rollouts don't. I think just from companies that I've been following and helping, we see in the beginning it was really the wild, wild west. And today, especially in some regions, Europe and others, there's more strict rules in terms of what you can or can't capture on camera and which types of camera, whether it's obviously face recognition and even tattoos. And I think it's great that the regulator is now catering to this, or starting to understand the space and figure out what is going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. We saw, again, as I mentioned, that in that specific pilot, which was in a few stores in Latin America, again, it wasn't just the customers started to feel watched. It was the employees felt like the system is there to catch them doing something wrong. And again, they got the training before. They were told how everything is legal and compliant, and we're not taking their pictures. Everything was out in the open, and still there was a lot of angst from the employees of why do they need this in the store. So I think for retailers who want to scale this successfully, you have to treat privacy as part of the product experience. And again, putting the regulator and its requirements aside, just in terms of your people, your employees in the stores, and obviously your customers, it has to be clear what the system does and what it doesn't. And trust is just another product experience or feature, if you want to call it that I think you have to address when you start. Otherwise, this whole thing is going to explode.
Yeah, adding that trust layer on top of it, again, I think is really important. I think from both sides of it, from the customers and the associates in the store. If you're feeling surveilled, you're probably lost the plot a bit with computer vision. If it quietly keeps shelves full, you got shorter queues, it's easy to check out. The associates become free to help. I think you've won. So you're sort of winning hearts and minds a little bit. You still get into the creepiness factors when you're actually looking about the real theft side of it, or you're surveilling from a workflow and productivity standpoint. So those will be trade-offs that you'll have to consider very closely as this matures. And I think, I think you're going to have to start somewhere. You got cameras on all the time. It's difficult.
I mean, think about it. I mean, all of us here sitting in our office, and this just occurred to me. Think about us. What if somebody comes in tomorrow and tells us, you continue to do whatever you're doing, it's all great. I'm just going to put a little camera here to take our pictures all day and see what you're doing. That doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel like somebody's trusting me. And obviously, retail store is a different environment. There's shelves, there's inventory. But I think, sometimes people, that's what, goes on in their mind is, this is here to watch me and see that I'm doing my job. It goes back to trust. So I think training is a big part of it. You can have a incredible technology, the latest hardware and AI agents and whatever it is, and it's going to fail if the people in the store lose trust in why you're doing this. And I think it's much more than just a technology installation and challenge. It's really a behavioral challenge as well.
Yeah, it was a super important point. And I think what you said about, essentially there's privacy by design, there's understanding, what is the perceived intrusion when you're using these systems, both on both sides of the camera, and knowing how that affects behavior. It sounds exciting. I mean, there's a lot of, it's an exciting time. And coming to the tinkering subject, I think there was a study that said something like 68% of retailers are piloting for implementing computer vision, and then another study that says, but only 4% are using it in production. So, does that directionally feel correct? And if so, why is there such a gap in that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how they define that, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everybody's got cameras in stores, right? So that's a form. Whether you're doing computer vision or not, you've got some level of it already started.
For sure.
Whether that's nascent or not. I think a lot of it is used from a loss prevention standpoint. That's where we have a lot of conversations, and that probably is the natural starting point. But once we actually start to see cases where it's driving real, and we are. I mean, we're seeing. Walmart's drive. I mean, I don't know if they're putting shelf cameras in, like, specifically with. I actually forget, it's electronic shelf labels, but sometimes it's in conjunction with shelf cameras. So you're starting to see that a little bit more happening. But once you actually start to see the growth cases drive actual, net profit at the end of the day, free cash flow. This is going to be a FOMO situation, and it's going to be required to have computer vision unless there's some sort of other IoT or other way of doing it, like LiDAR or something. I'm not sure, but computer vision seems a natural choice to get to where the future of stores and operating stores are going, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we talked about this before, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just about installing a piece of hardware. It's how do you build the right, let's call it, data pipeline that doesn't break every time the business, which is the store, changes. And again, retail stores change all the time. How do you build a model that doesn't break every time something changes in the store? And I really think this is where, having a strong engineering partner really matters, because it's not just about, hey, what AI agent magic, and let's throw in some more buzzwords I can throw in there. It's really, how do I build a disciplined, structured execution machine over time that, again, takes that data, whatever happens in the store, and ties it to what is the action I'm doing with it. And I think this is what people realize after they do a pilot. I agree with Joe. The 4% number to me sounds surprisingly low. And again, every retail store I can think of today has computer vision. The only question is, what do they actually do with it?
Right.
I don't know how they counted those numbers.
Right. And they probably run into a lot of roadblocks too, as we talked about before. Like you said, Arnon, like it's really, it's easy to see it in a conference setting where everything's working. It's going to work at 99% of the time. You start adding shadows or reflection off the Red Bull, refrigerator. Like it's going to throw things off a bit. And there's some traps as it relates to pilots, right? There's proofs of concepts sometimes drag on. They're disconnected, or they're stripped of the context that makes it useful sometimes. I've run into that leading innovation at big companies before, inside big retailers. You've got the silo syndrome, which still exists at retailers, and everybody's been talking about trying to break that out of that for decades and decades. Everybody owns their own silo and the KPIs within that silo that are sometimes optimizing just for your silo and not other silos or the organization silo. Those silos still need to break down within retail. I think some retailers are doing a better job of breaking those down. The others, and then you have like this edge reality check. What kind of store infrastructure do you have? Is it weak? Do you have bandwidth issues? Do you have a compute choke on AI before it can deliver actual value? So there's just pieces of the puzzle that need to get built in. I think that's why I like looking at the autonomous driving vehicles. I mean, those were supposed to be already, what percent, I don't know, a larger percentage of penetration into all vehicles than they are today already. But they're running into all those issues too, and they're working through them. So again, I think it's inevitable. It's just a matter of again, retailers don't have a lot of margin. So where do you start? What's the best place to start with the margins? Shrink its inventory accuracy, make those work first, and then you're going to get some adoption, and you're going to start seeing a lot more adoption for computer vision.